when it comes to what you're saying about the high value men and the percentages, so, I remember the time before smartphones, when
Mm-hmm.
I was the majority of my dating life, I don't know if you ever seen the movie Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know his name, but the young guy that's with them,
Mm-hmm.
he's a millennial, I guess, and and now they're back in 1986, and he sees a girl and he's talking to her, and then
Mm-hmm.
she has to go off with her friends, and he says, do you have email? Can I text you later?
Yeah.
And of course, 1986, she doesn't know what he's talking about, and he says to her, well, how do I find you? And she said, you just come find me. And he said, well, that sounds exhausting. But see,
Yeah.
that's what I remember. I
Yeah.
remember growing up, especially like in high school, if you wanted to meet up with a girl, you drove around the square, and where I grew up, the town I
Mm-hmm.
grew up, you drove around the square until you saw some of her friends, and you'd find out where she was. And then you'd go
Right.
hang out,
Right.
you find out what party she was at or whatever. Because we didn't have that. Cell phones came out at the end of my high school time, but it was like, $10 a minute. Nobody used them. I
Mm-hmm.
had one for emergencies in my car if I had a wreck.
Right.
So there was none of that. And when you lose that, having to go out in the real world, or like I said, like in bars,
Mm-hmm.
women actually there's a huge difference between having to go out into the real world, meet somebody face to face,
Mm-hmm.
than having the access on the internet. Oh, here's all the guys that are looking in my area. It's it's a convenience thing. I do understand that, but it allows women to be far more picky about what they are
Mm-hmm.
going for, because and I think it causes a lot of women to have an unrealistic
Yeah.
view. It's just like I saw something, and it was one of those just like short little videos, some guy, on the streets of some city, and he'd talk to women, he'd say, how tall do you want a guy to be? And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, and most girls, has to be over
Mm-hmm.
6 foot,
Mm-hmm.
has to be
Mm-hmm.
over 6 foot. And and he talks about, well, what's percentage of that is, and something like it's over 6'2". Like once you hit six
Yeah.
three, it drops. Like
Oh
that is
yeah.
a very small percentage of the male population
Mm-hmm.
in the United States or in the world. Um, and and so this one girl, she said something like, she wanted him to be over 6 foot, be between the age of I think 25 to 35, and make six figures a year.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, you have a 0.002% chance of
Mm-hmm.
meeting that person.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically, it's just not realistic. Doesn't mean that she
Right.
won't find him.
No.
And to be honest with you, the girl wasn't.
No.
She
They
wasn't
never are.
right.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, if that's going to be her standard for life, she's
Mm-hmm.
never going to find somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to be mean by that. It's just simply statistics. I mean, it's
And
the number.
I will add. So here's one thing I'm going to teach my daughters when they're of age. The sexual market value, that woman, that example, I think you're talking about Kevin Samuels.
I don't know.
Kevin Samuels just passed away. Was he a black guy?
No.
So a lot of them do it. He is big on like, he would break down a woman's like size, if she already has kids, how much money she make or doesn't make, if she can cook. He would put her in a statistical category.
Oh,
as well as she would put herself or put men into a category: height, this amount of money, this age, this type of house, right? So, and women would realize, oh, I can't get that man. Well, the problem is they've been, by that man. If the sexual market value of a girl, because he would interview a lot of pretty girls, but they would have babies from other men, so that's brings them down.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that guy that she was seeking didn't want to sleep with her. So she attributes that to, gotcha, I can marry that guy. Right.
But that's not the same thing.
Exactly. So exactly. Yeah, and women are not understanding that. So that is one of the big things. Dude, I'm going to say it here, and I've told this, she kind of laughs at it. I'm going to tell my daughters to go for men 5 to 10 years older than them, because that failing and a man getting into that status and you knowing him and her preserving herself, her being feminine, will drive that man to look at you and be like, that's a high value woman that I don't just want to sleep with. I want to marry that woman. Yep. So that's a big confusing. And I know there's women out there that are probably that would say, well, men do this, men do that. And there are a lot of things I agree with, but women they're very out of touch with reality. They have standards for what men should be, but they don't keep their standards. I mean, if you were to pick 100 girls and say, how many of you are virgins at 21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
today, and growing up in the South, going to a Christian high school and a Christian college, I do know probably a much higher percentage of girls that did wait until they were married than the average person would know in life.
Right.
But even I don't know that many.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not judging in any way, shape, or form about that, but it is definitely true that women need to understand that it's not the same thing when, well, let's just use the bar scenario again.
Mm-hmm.
Any girl who is relatively attractive
Mm-hmm.
could go to a bar, and if she chose to, she could go home with a guy. Every decent looking girl
Pretty
could.
much.
It's not the same thing on the other end, because every guy in there, you're competing against the other guys in there, and all of those girls are all going for, like you said, that small percentage.
Yep.
So you would have to have something else, like things they don't talk about, the really good personality, or you're funny, I've got a friend of mine who's hilarious, not the best looking guy in the world at all, but has always done very, very well with girls because of his personality. He's very outgoing and very, he's charming. He's funny in a charming way,
And a girl cannot get that on Tinder or a dating app.
Exactly. And
so
that's,
he has to get in the world.
And it's like when they're talking about all these things, height, income, things like that. It's like, okay, well, what about the other thing? And I'm not saying those things, well, the height thing, I mean, I get a girl wants to wear heels and not be taller than a guy. I understand that and everything. But if you're talking about the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with and potentially have children with, why is that really that much of a concern to you? But whatever, everybody has their thing, I guess. But the other things, the income, I mean, yes, I understand, you wanting, I would understand more saying I want a man who is successful in his career, not so much then I need a dollar amount.
Right.
Because let's just say a guy starts out at the very bottom of a company and over a 20-year career climbs that ladder. Yeah, it's might be a while before he makes a lot of money, but he's improving his life.
Right.
He's continuing to improve and do better. So that, in my opinion, should be, give him more credit, I guess, than just somebody who maybe they graduated from college and got a really good internship, and next thing you know, they're making six figures. And not that they didn't work for it, but does that really, just because whatever happened in their life, it put them in that position, whereas the other person might end up making the same amount of money, but it just might take them longer to climb that ladder.
Persistence.
And why isn't instead of how much money does he make and stuff like that, why isn't it, is he going to beat me? Is he going to cheat on me? Is he the things that actually, in my opinion, mean more long-term in life, because I don't look at anymore. I'll admit my view as far as, not what I'm attracted to hasn't changed over the years, but as far as just attractiveness, I look at a girl and say, I find her physically attractive.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. But what has changed is when it comes to having a relationship with someone and investing my time and planning a future with, those things have drastically changed over the years. And I think that my relationship, I mean, well, especially, mine now, but even just my relationships in college versus my relationships in the Marines, the ones in college, even though they weren't great and it took, they were learning lessons, they still were more what I would call real. Than the ones before. And a lot of that is the girls I was choosing. And a lot of that also was my action. It's both. But one of the things is, I put things, what I choose to put as a higher value, what qualities in a woman that are higher value. It's things, not that she has to be a stay-at-home mom, but does she have the same views that I have as far as wanting kids, having kids, how to raise kids? What do you want in the future? There was one girl that I dated just briefly, and it was great between her. Like she was cool, a great girl and everything. We got along great, had a lot of fun. But what she saw as being successful was having a really nice apartment downtown, in the middle of the city that we were living at the time. And mine is the opposite. I said, I wanted, land for my kids to be able to go fishing and ride four-wheelers. She looked at me like I was the biggest redneck, I'm like, I'm sorry, but that is important to me.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that she now has kids, and she lives on a farm.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. If you want to see more clips like this, just check out right here. Also, if you want to follow the full podcast, make sure you check the link in the description below. Thank you all again, and I will catch you on the next video.